Welcome to Law of One Wisdom. Today, we're diving into Session 2.
Yes, and it's a heavy one today.
It really is. Imagine trying to fix a broken planet, right?
Yeah.
Only to realize that your advanced technological cure accidentally created this thousands of years long cycle of greed and elite control. Today, we're basically looking at a cosmic apology.
That's a great way to put it.
But before we get into that, let's just ground ourselves in the setting. For you listening, just picture this. It's 1981. We're in a quiet room with three people. Don Elkins is asking the questions. Jim McCarty is meticulously transcribing everything. And lying down in this, deeply altered state is Carla Rueckert.
Right, she's the instrument.
Exactly. Acting as a channel for an intelligence that calls itself raw. I mean, before we go further into the actual session, there's this massive conceptual hurdle right at the start. Ra describes itself as a sixth-density social memory complex.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
It is. And for you, the listener, try and picture this. What does that actually mean in practice?
It's a really critical definition to establish early on because, when we hear the word alien, we tend to think of like a physical being in a spaceship, little green men, right?
Right, exactly.
But Ra is not that. In this cosmology, densities are essentially levels of conscious evolution. So we, here on Earth, are currently in the third density.
The density of self-awareness.
Right, self-awareness and, crucially, the illusion of separation, where you and I feel like completely distinct, separate individuals. But a sixth density social memory complex is a civilization that has evolved millions of years past that illusion.
Wow.
Yeah, they've merged their consciousness. It's an entire planetary population where the thoughts, the memories, the experiences of every single individual they're available to the whole. They act and speak as one unified entity. They don't have physical bodies like we do.
They're composed of what? Light and intelligent energy.
Exactly. Light and intelligent energy.
So that drastically shifts how we should perceive this whole dialogue. Don Elkins isn't just interviewing a guy. He's speaking to an entire integrated civilization.
Yeah, the scale of it is wild.
And realizing the sheer weight of what he's dealing with, Don's instinct is, well, it's very human. He wants to document it. He asks Ra if it's acceptable to compile these communications into a book for the public.
Which makes sense for a researcher.
Absolutely. And Ra's response agrees to the publication, but they introduce this very specific phrase. They call it teach learning. They don't say teaching and learning as separate things.
They don't know. And the reasoning cuts right to the core of their whole philosophy. To a unified consciousness, teaching and learning are identical mechanisms.
How so?
Well, because there is only one ultimate consciousness in the universe experiencing itself, hoarding knowledge is functionally impossible. It would be like, I don't know, like your left hand refusing to share what it knows with your right hand.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
You can't fully integrate a spiritual truth until you've successfully transmitted it to another part of the creator. So by teaching us, Ra learns. And by learning from Ra, we teach them about the density of our current human experience.
So establishing that unified framework, Don then tries to begin where, any logical researcher would.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
Naturally.
He asks Ra for their historical background. He's looking for a timeline of their interactions with Earth. But Ra actually hesitates.
Yeah, they do.
They wait for Don to ask a second time before answering.
Yeah.
And they deliver a really clear warning. They state that focusing on the time-space of thousands of years ago creates a, quote, spurious type of interest.
Which is a remarkably gentle way of saying, you're asking the wrong questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Ra categorizes our reality as space-time. That's our physical, chronological, tick-tock existence, where things happen one after another.
Right, linear time.
Exactly. But they operate primarily in time-space, which is a metaphysical state where time is far more fluid. It's simultaneous. So when Ra warns against a spurious interest, they're cautioning Don and you, as the listener, that obsessing over historical chronologies and physical events is a trap.
It's a distraction.
Yeah, it distracts the seeker from the actual work of spiritual integration.
I was thinking about this, and it's sort of like obsessing over the exact chemical makeup of the ink used to print the Magna Carta, or, mapping out the exact geographical route the parchment took across England, while completely ignoring the actual concepts of human rights and liberty written on the page.
That is a perfect way to look at it. You become an expert in the physical trivia, but you entirely miss the philosophy.
Right.
That's precisely the danger. However, the structure of this contact provides a safeguard. The format demands that Ra only speaks in direct response to Don's queries. This isn't a top-down lecture.
It's a dialogue.
Yes, and it's strictly governed by the seeker's free will. If Don insists on historical trivia, Raw will eventually answer, but they won't impose their agenda. They perfectly honor the human right to ask, even if the question leads down a less spiritually productive path.
And Don does push for that history. He acknowledges Ra's reluctance, but he evaluates the request as harmless and asks again. And this prompts Ra to reveal a really sobering historical intervention, one they openly admit was flawed.
Yeah, this is where the apology comes in.
Ra explains that 11,000 of our years ago, they came to two planetary cultures, one in Egypt and one in South America. Ra states it was their naive belief that they could teach these cultures directly. They brought advanced tools, specifically crystal healing technology, to assist with the distortions of the mind, body, and spirit.
Ra believed that because these cultures already possessed a foundational belief in the consciousness of all things, they were ready for direct contact and advanced teachings. But Ra fundamentally miscalculated.
I have to pause here, though, and challenge this a bit.
Sure.
How can a sixth density entity, a civilization vibrating at an unimaginably high level of awareness, possessing millions of years of integrated wisdom, be kind of naive? How could they fail to anticipate human greed?
It's a totally valid skepticism. It sounds contradictory, right?
Yeah, completely.
But to understand their naivety, you have to remember the environment of the sixth density. In their reality, transparency is absolute. The illusion of separation has been entirely dissolved. There are no hidden motives, no hoarding of resources, because hurting another is literally understood as hurting yourself.
Oh, I see.
So when they look down through the heavy, dense veil of third-density Earth, they fail to comprehend just how fiercely the human ego clings to power and separation. They vastly underestimated the blinding effect of our physical illusion.
And the text shows exactly how that underestimation played out. Ra states, and I quote, "We found that the technology was reserved largely for those with the effectual mind-body distortion of power. This was not intended by the law of one."
Right. The ruling elite took this miraculous crystal healing technology and hoarded it for themselves.
They turned tools of universal unity into mechanisms of exclusion and dominance.
By intervening directly and handing over technology that human consciousness hadn't naturally earned or integrated, Ra disrupted the organic spiritual progression of those cultures. They meant to accelerate healing, but instead they reinforced the very egoic structures they were trying to alleviate.
Which created a karmic knot.
Exactly, a spiritual responsibility. They are still tied to Earth, still trying to untangle that knot thousands of years later through their current communication with Carla.
And Ra actually details a previous attempt to fix this knot, right? During the 18th dynasty in Egypt, they managed to quietly contact a specific pharaoh. Ra refers to this pharaoh as a wanderer.
Yes. And in this cosmology, a wanderer means an entity from a higher density who chose to incarnate as a human on Earth to help elevate the planet's consciousness.
Historically, this is Akhenaten. The transcript notes he was originally named honoring the god Amun, but he changed his name to Adon, honoring the sun disk. And Ra mentions that the sun disk was a close distortion to their true nature as a vibration of light. Akhenaten actually decreed the law of one across Egypt.
Yet even that massive political correction failed. Ra observes that Akhenaten's beliefs were accepted by almost no one.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The priests and the ruling class, they gave lip service to the law of one while he was alive, solely out of political survival. But they lacked the internal spiritual seeking. The moment Akhenaten died, the culture immediately reverted to the worship of a fragmented pantheon of gods.
A divided state that Ra says persisted in that region until Muhammad introduced a more unified conceptual framework much later.
It demonstrates a really harsh truth about human development. You just can't mandate spiritual evolution from the throne.
Exactly. You cannot legislate enlightenment. If the consciousness of the population hasn't reached that level of integration, a decree is just, words on a monument.
Perfectly said.
So this cycle of misused technology leads Don to ask a very logical follow-up. If this intervention was a mistake because the elite weaponized the tools, well, we need to look at the tools themselves. What exactly were these crystals doing?
Right, the mechanics of it.
Yeah. Ra details the mechanics of crystal healing, explaining that it addresses the hierarchical structure of the human being. They describe specific crystals for the spiritual body, others for the distortions from spirit to mind, and others to balance mind and body.
But the crucial takeaway from Ra's explanation is that the crystal has no inherent power on its own.
Really?
Yeah, the crystal is merely a passive lens or a resonating chamber. The mechanism requires a purified channel, meaning a human healer whose consciousness is highly aligned and stripped of ego.
Oh, I see.
If the crystal is a magnifying glass, the healer's consciousness is the sunlight. If the glass is dirty or if the light is weak, nothing happens.
That makes a lot of sense. Ra actually stresses that if a channel is truly purified, if they're completely filled with the love and light of the one creator, the specific type of stone barely matters.
Yeah, they say even a common flawed diamond or a simple ruby can be used for profound healing.
It's the consciousness wielding the tool that matters, not the tool itself. But Ra also warns that achieving this state of relative crystallization, becoming that pure conduit, takes rigorous initiation. Very few human beings ever persevere through the intense psychological and spiritual purification required.
Which naturally brings the discussion to the grandest tools Ra left behind, the pyramids.
Right.
The pyramids were not built as tombs. They were engineered as the ultimate, highly controlled environments for this exact rigorous initiation.
Dawn asks Ra directly if they were responsible for building the pyramids, and Ra confirmed that they built the larger structures using what they call the forces of one. And then Ra makes a statement that forces a complete halt in the reading for me. I'll quote it directly. The stones are alive.
Yeah, it's a deeply challenging sentence.
I really want to push on this. Is Ra just using a poetic metaphor to awe a human listener? Or are they speaking literally when they say a multi-ton block of limestone is alive? Are we supposed to view this through a biological lens or something else entirely?
It's entirely literal, but it requires us to discard our biological definition of life and look through the lens of quantum physics and law of one cosmology.
Okay, unpack that.
To Ra, the universe isn't dead rock drifting through a cold, empty void. Everything, every atom, every piece of granite, every drop of water is composed of intelligent energy. It's the creator experiencing itself at different levels of density.
So a stone is conscious.
A stone is a first density consciousness. It doesn't have self-awareness, but it possesses a vibrational aliveness. When Ra says they built the pyramids using the forces of one, they're explaining that they didn't cut and drag dead rock with slaves and ropes.
Right, which is the traditional historical view.
Exactly. Instead, they communicated with the intelligent energy of the stone, coaxing its consciousness to alter its physical manifestation into a specific geometric configuration.
Wow. They collaborated with the rock rather than conquering it.
Yeah.
And Ra outlines two massive original purposes for these living geometric structures. The first, as we mentioned, was to serve as a perfectly oriented place of initiation for those aspiring healers. But the second purpose operates on a scale that is almost difficult to comprehend.
It really is.
Ra says the pyramids were designed to balance the incoming cosmic energy of the entire planet. They were intended to form a ring of crystal-bearing structures around the Earth's surface.
The analogy that works best here is that of a planetary grounding wire, or an acupuncture needle.
Oh, planetary acupuncture.
Yeah, the Earth itself is considered a living entity with a mind, body, and spirit complex, and it suffers from its own energetic distortions. This ring of pyramids was engineered as a colossal network of spiritual tuning forks. They were placed at precise energetic nodes to receive, focus, and harmonize the chaotic cosmic energies bombarding the planet, radiating balance outward.
It's a vision of global, unified healing machinery.
A machinery that was immediately misunderstood and abandoned.
Now, as Dawn is absorbing this vast, sweeping history of living stones and planetary acupuncture, he asks a very grounded logistical question. He wants to know what the capstone of the pyramid was made of, and he asks how Ra physically moved those massive blocks. And here, the transcript takes a sudden, sharp turn.
It does. It's a striking moment of contrast between human curiosity and higher density compassion. Ra politely refuses to answer.
Ra says, quote, "I request that we be asked this question in our next work time." And the reason they give is sobering. The intense energetic work of this communication, the actual physics of pushing a concept from a sixth density time-space reality into a third density space-time room, is taking an immediate, severe toll.
Yes.
The instrument Carl is experiencing dangerous fatigue. We just spent all this time discussing planetary tuning forks, and suddenly we're violently reminded of the fragile human body acting as a tuning fork right there on the floor in 1981.
Channeling at this level of intensity isn't like receiving a radio broadcast. It places a massive structural and energetic load on the biological system. The vital energy of the channel is literally being drained to sustain the contact.
That's terrifying.
It is. And when Rapp points this out, Don's entire demeanor shifts. He immediately drops his historical curiosity. The timeline of the pyramids ceases to matter. His sole focus becomes the care of his friend. He urgently asks, What should we do to maximize her ability to bet, comfort, rejuvenation, etc.?
And Ra's response to Don's concern is one of those paradoxical moments in the text. If you're listening to this and thinking, wait, didn't Ra just warn against obsessing over physical details and spurious historical forms? You're right.
They absolutely did.
Yet, to protect Carla, Ra proceeds to prescribe a highly specific, intricately detailed, and almost magical physical ritual.
The specificity is incredibly rigid. Ra instructs Dawn and Jim to align Carla's body so her head points exactly 20 degrees north by northeast.
20 degrees exactly.
Yeah. Ra explains this is the direction from which newer, more stable emanations of cosmic love and light are entering the planet.
And it goes much further than compass headings. Ra dictates exact physical objects to be placed around her. A virgin chalice of water at her head. In the center, a Christian Bible, open specifically to the Gospel of John, chapter 1.
Right.
To the rear of the Bible, a white candle. Next to it, a virgin censer with incense. Carla must wear a white robe, be fully covered, and have her eyes shielded.
It's very elaborate.
Furthermore, Ra provides a strict call-and-response verbal ritual to be performed before every session. Don and Jim must walk a circle around Carla, declaring, "What is the law? The law is one. Why are we here? We seek the law of one."
Followed by a forceful declaration to let no thought form enter the circle.
If a listener is hearing this, the natural reaction is deep skepticism. Why does a vast sixth-density alien intelligence require a King James Bible, some incense, and a chalice of water to communicate? How do we reconcile a boundless universal philosophy with what sounds like a rigid occult ritual?
It's an incredible paradox, but the mechanism behind it is pure psychological architecture. Ra explains quite clearly that the candle, the water, and the incense do not possess inherent magical powers. The universe isn't bound by a chalice of water.
So what are they doing?
Rather, these objects are potent archetypal symbols. Ra is utilizing the pre-existing psychological structures within Carla's own mind. Because Carla was a deeply devoted, practicing Christian, the Bible, and specifically the Gospel of John, which emphasizes the Word, and light represented the absolute highest vibration of safety, love, and divine protection to her subconscious.
By surrounding her with these specific symbols, Ra is constructing an impenetrable psychological sanctuary. The ritual triggers her deepest internal beliefs, locking her vital energies into a state of absolute calm and protection while she's outside her waking consciousness.
Exactly, and the ritual serves a dual purpose. Ra explicitly notes that these elaborate physical preparations will ease the mind distortions of those about the instrument.
Meeting Don and Jim.
Yes, it gives Don and Jim, who are sitting in that room, watching their friend enter a state akin to death, a concrete, physical mechanism to focus their own energy. It translates their generalized worry into focused, protective action.
That's beautiful, actually.
It proves that while Ra operates in a reality of boundless unity, they possess a profound respect for the delicate, symbol-driven reality of the human mind. They meet us exactly where our psychological architecture requires.
Tracing the journey of this single session, the scope of what we've covered is immense. We began in the vast, unified framework of teach learning, exploring a reality where the hoarding of knowledge is impossible.
Right.
We confronted Ra's ancient missteps, watching how advanced tools meant to accelerate healing were hijacked by the human distortion of power. We explored a cosmology where stones are alive, coalesced from intelligent energy, organized into monumental structures meant to ground the chaotic energy of the planet.
It's a huge shift in perspective.
And yet, after all of that cosmic mechanics and history, the session ends in a quiet, grounded room. It ends with the incredibly tender, meticulous placement of a water chalice and a white candle next to a physically exhausted human being.
It is a remarkable arc. We pull back from the macrocosm of planetary acupuncture all the way down to the microcosm of tending to a single vulnerable friend. And as we process the philosophy laid out in the session, there is a quiet internal audit I'd offer for you to consider.
I love this.
We spent significant time discussing ancient technologies, crystals, and living stones that were intended to serve the whole of humanity, but were ultimately co-opted and hoarded by a ruling elite. Consider the crystals in your own daily life.
Your own tools.
Yes. Think of your unique talents, your specialized knowledge, your financial resources, or even just your emotional energy. Are those tools being utilized as a lens to serve, heal, and balance the environment and the people around you? Or if you examine your motivations closely, are those tools being quietly hoarded by your own internal distortions of power, ego, and separation?
Thank you for sitting with us. The source text is available at lawphone.info.